It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name is George Cooper and welcome to the show. We were hoping we'd be getting our passports out next season, but on Sunday, those lucky enough to get a ticket were digging out their Merlin passes as a trip to Legoland, also known as the Tete Community Stadium, awaited. With Palace's FA Cup victory, our defeat to Everton and their 8th European place looking increasingly unlikely, there wasn't as much riding on this one as we'd have hoped. But who are we kidding? When we play Brentford, there is always local pride at stake. Goals and controversy ensued, not to mention heroics that will go down in Fulham folklore when our captain Tom Cairney and our wizard on the wing Harry Wilson, who with a wave of his little Welsh wand scored what will no doubt be crowned our goal of the season. He's done it again. He's done it again. Harry Wilson, he's done it again. With Brentford, it feels like more than just a local derby. Being Brentford is like putting your little brother in a headlock after he's been getting a little bit lippy. It's restoring balance, natural order, reminding them who is boss. It's one that will live long in our memory, that's for sure. Pure joy. Joining me today is Drew Heatley. How you doing, mate?
Hello, George. Poor Freddie. Little insight into how he grew up.
I mean, I may be 10 years older than him, but he needs to know. He needs to learn. Also joined by Piers Jones. How are you doing, sir?
What a Sunday that was.
Yeah, I mean, up there with the very best. Very good times. And I'm also joined by Mr. Jack Kelly.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure is always ours, Jack. Pleasure is always ours. You got some 3-word reviews for us, I believe. Would you like to kick things off?
Yeah, I've picked out 4 3-word reviews. Let's start with Joe Gunning, Harry's Hive Heist, which I thought was fantastic. Cam Ramsey, of course, with 3, 2, 1, as in 1 WON. Jack J. Collins with Harry Wilson Beekeeper, very, very clever. And Jack and Loz with Cairney Leave It.
Excellent. Good work. I imagine it was a very fun task going through those 3-word reviews. Thank you, as always, to all of those who got in touch. Piers, I spotted you at the very back of the G-Tech during the full-time celebrations. Now that the dust has settled a little bit, can you sum up just how you feel after that victory?
Pretty elated. I think every Fulham fan is feeling that same way. The few of us who were allowed to go to the very small ground in Legoland were all in fine voice, bounced around all the time, and I think really did a great job of helping spur the players on and through it. It was such a phenomenal day for everyone, and I think everyone at the club should be really proud of how we went about yesterday.
Yeah, it was great from start to finish. You know, sun was out. It was just, it's always going to that stadium. It's so, I don't mean to sort of immediately shit on the stadium, but it's just so crap, isn't it? It's got a real bobbins. It staggers me that stadium is brand new. You look around and it looks like a knackered old estate that they're itching to get out of. It was only constructed a few years ago. And the best bit is obviously it was sunny yesterday. You know, the big screen that sort of balances on top of the end opposite the away end. It gives off that vibe of, you know, when the World Cup's on and you stick the TV in the garden, you can't really see it. The glare's coming off it all of different angles. It just looks so village. But anyway, enough about them. Drew, obviously seeing Palace lift the FA Cup this weekend was a hard watch. Lots of feelings of that could have been us. But when you register a victory like that against our closest rivals on their patch, I mean, as a football supporter, it doesn't get much better than that, does it?
Well, I mean, this weekend has really sort of summed up the season, really. You know, sitting back on Saturday and seeing Palace lift the trophy that we were all convinced was ours for so many reasons, not least because it's 50 years since 75 and we did all that hard work against United. And it was the season of opportunity and we're looking at all that went wrong. And then obviously then you get the high of Sunday where, you know, we come back and we do the double over Brentford, the first one in, you know, however many years. Granted, they've been in the doldrums while we've been in the top flight, but for many of us, not many of us would have seen it. So, yeah, it's the ups and the downs of this season. And I think I've been thinking a lot about, you know, what is success and how do you gauge success this year? And, you know, Marco Silva said on Friday ahead of the Brentford game, Jack Kelly, you were there. He said, I don't think there's any way that you can call this season a failure. And while I don't necessarily think it is a failure, I think there are plenty of reasons why you could call it a failure. It's great to dent Brentford's European hopes, but actually what yesterday should have been about is boosting our own European hopes. But 3 points out of the previous 15 meant that wasn't the case. So I mean, I'm struggling a bit, to be honest. I mean, I'm really pleased that we got that win, and the manner in which we did it was great. And I'm sure, I wasn't lucky enough to go on yesterday, but for those who were there, I'm sure it was an all-time Fulham day. But I think when you look at it through the lens of the whole season, it's bittersweet, I guess, is probably the way to put it.
No, you're quite right, Drew. I mean, obviously we would have hoped that we could have been putting ourselves into Europe with that win, or at least putting bees out of Europe. But ultimately it sort of looked like neither. To sum up, because I know obviously the chances of it happening are next to zero, but there is still a very slim chance. We're all kind of collectively embodying that Dumber and Dumber scene where she asks what are the chances of 1 in a million. He's like, so you're telling me there's still a chance? But anyway, I've done a little bit of digging, and to sum up, so despite Palace winning, 8th place is still possible if Chelsea finish 6th, win the Conference League, and Newcastle finish 7th, or Chelsea finish 7th and win the Conference League. Okay, so that's just for 8th to be a European spot. So that already is somewhat, it could happen, but big chance that it won't. So assuming that 8th place is still Europe, so Brighton could kill off any chance with a win over Liverpool on Monday, or a win over Tottenham on the final day, which I think is the clincher, because I can't imagine Tottenham are going to be putting up much of a fight after their Europa League final, which is this week. On top of that, Bournemouth play City and Leicester, so 4 points from those two would put them ahead of us due to their superior goal difference. So Bournemouth have got to either get a draw against City and beat Leicester, or vice versa. So Brentford also have a superior goal difference to us. We'd have to rely on them not winning at Wolves on the last day, which is another clincher. If Brentford beat Wolves, then that's it, curtains. And of course, all of this pales into insignificance if we fail to beat Manchester City on the final day of the season. Now, Jack Kelly, are we deluded, or can we be treated to one of your famous catchphrases? I think you know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I didn't. I usually sometimes tweet that after a win, but I didn't feel it was appropriate at this point, because it's quite far gone. There's obviously a lot of permutations that need to happen in order for that to be the case. But that shouldn't take away from how brilliant yesterday was. It's almost like, well, if we're going to go down and not get Europe, then we might as well take Brentford with us, hopefully. And that obviously could be the case. And that's, for me, like, we watched the FA Cup final on Saturday. Palace won. It's difficult to really know how to feel about the whole situation. But my overriding feeling was, well, if it means that Brentford don't get Europe, and if we go to the GTEC tomorrow and win, which we did, then there's a high chance that they won't make it and we won't make it. We had our opportunities to do it earlier in the season to get more points. We haven't done that. But 6 points over Brentford, home and away, wins, Harry Wilson winners. I have no complaints.
You got to take your wins when you get them, Let's go on to the game. Enough about the Europe hypotheticals. First half, I think we'll all be in agreement, was a pretty horrible watch. Brentford's pace, very hard to deal with, causing us all sorts of problems. However, it was the mighty Leeds who took the white, thanks to our Mexican Raul. It was very similar to the goal that we scored against Everton, and Piers, yet another goal for our Mexican striker. It was a bit of a weird one, because there was a slight delay to the celebrations due to the way it sort of squirmed into the net, but when they did kick off, I think you'd agree they kicked off, didn't they?
Yeah, I think it was one of the most muted opening Derby Day goals we've ever had, where for those who weren't there, the ball sort of snuck under Flecken, where you weren't quite sure if he'd stopped it or got his hand over it. Then it went in. Then Raul changed his celebration direction, which almost looked like he wasn't sure if it had got in, when you watch it on the TV and it's just quite simply just gone straight in and hit the back of the net. Yeah. So it was a lovely bit having a very delayed reaction to it all. The ball in from Traore is a lovely float to cross in there. I think he was really effective attacking wise down that right wing and played some really good balls in. And Raul's determination to win that header was really evident there. And it sort of reminded me a little bit of Mitro against Trent in that famous goal against Liverpool, with how he made Collins on this occasion look really insignificant and got to that header really nicely. It was a great moment and a great opening.
Yeah, that bit of build-up play from Adama is worth speaking about, and it's been very effective. You see him pick it up on the edge of the area, make his way out wide, and then ping that sort of floated ball back across the face of goal, which, when you got Raul Jimenez coming onto it, is very, very difficult to defend. And it's worth just mentioning Adama, I think, Drew, because at half-time he was getting a little bit of stick from the people that I was chatting to. My friends having a beer at half-time. There was a few opportunities maybe where you felt like he could have made some runs, but I have to say, I think he put in a really good shift, you have to say, especially in the second half where he did look that little bit more dynamic. But yeah, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on Adama's performance, Drew, because I think he's proven to be a very sharp arrow in Marco's quiver of late.
Yeah, he's always going to be a player that sort of divides opinion, and that's for a multitude of reasons. Everything down to from the fact that he looks like a WWE wrestler to the fact that he sometimes can be sort of all running and no end product. But actually, if you look at his stats, seven assists this season, 2 goals. I think considering the game time that he's had, minutes, I'm sure I haven't done the maths, but that's going to extrapolate quite well, I think, for somebody who we got for. Did he arrive on a free? I think so. I think that's great. That's great value. And then he had a good game yesterday, I think, overall in terms of his contributions to the game. We talk about players like, back in the day it was, and I know it's a slightly different position, but Andy Cole, when we had him, he did nothing for 90 minutes, but he'd pop up with a goal and he'd get away with it. And I think, Traore, if he can get a couple of assists in a game like that, then what more do you really want from him? And it was nice to see, him set up. Raul, who himself has had a fantastic term with 12 goals and 3 assists, and the fact that they both got their extensions, which I think some of them were quite widely poo-pooed on Friday night, which just baffles me because, we started the season with 24 first team squad members and we want to try and get Europe. We haven't got enough players to even cope with the 38 game Premier League season. So you can't be turning your nose up at extending the contracts of 3 players who have actually all done fantastically well. I know there wasn't as much derision over Harry Wilson because he falls the other side of that fan opinion. People love Harry no matter what he does, me included. Don't get me wrong, but I just it was nice to see them both mark that news with a couple of impactful sort of contributions to the game, if not all round performances. So more power to them both, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with you, Drew. I think these are 2 players who have more than earned their extensions, the shifts that they've put in this year, and whilst there are moments that might not be so lauded, I think that when you look at the value that we've got out of those 2 signings, then all credit to them. I think they're very deserved. I look forward to seeing them play for us next year. There was a moment of controversy that followed shortly after our goal, Jack. It was a challenge by Tete, who was on a yellow card already. Now, Brentford fans were pretty incensed. They thought that it should have been a second yellow card. And obviously, later on, Mbeumo Wissa, who was on a very stupid yellow for simply pulling back Leno, was about to unleash from the penalty area. It was a very mindless challenge. Then moments later, came in with a challenge on Robinson. Now, personally, I think that this second yellow was far more of a yellow card than Kenny's by quite some distance. But I wanted to hear what your take on it was, Jack, because I wonder whether the referee had that Kenny Tete chance in his mind when he chose not to, give Wissa his marching orders. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it was one of those ones where very similar in situations and obviously very short between the times it happened. The Tete one, when he goes across and Sharda goes down, the immediate cries from the Brentford fans, of course, second yellow. But it wasn't cynical, his foul, at all. If anything, it wasn't really much of a foul whatsoever. Whereas Wissa, there's a pull on Anthony Robinson. It is cynical. I think any other situation on the pitch, if he's not been yellow carded previously, he would get a yellow card for that. We saw instances in the game, and you'll see it all season, where you tug a player back when they're on the run, you'll get a yellow card. And it just felt as if Jarrett Gillett was sort of tallying it all up and going, well, I didn't give the second yellow for Kenny, so therefore I've got to be consistent and not give a second yellow for Wissa. Albeit, I agree with you, George. I think that Vissa's foul was more cynical than Kenny's. It maybe felt as if Kenny was on like a last warning for his foul, whereas Wissa, it felt as if there was more significance in the contact. And if the referee's gone over and said, look, you're on your last warning as well, I can understand why Marco and any of the players for Fulham would have been up in arms saying, well, that's a worse foul than Kenny Tete's. Controversial, of course. Obviously, you don't really want to see players sent off in a derby where it makes it 10v10 or 10v11. Obviously, Wissa should have been sent off, in my personal opinion. And then obviously, Brentford also later on in the game get an incredibly soft penalty. So Marco, after the game, was absolutely up in arms about, again, poor refereeing decisions. And I think he's completely justified to feel that way. I thought the referee got some things wrong in the game, but luckily the result means that we don't have to think about it.
Yeah, I think it has to be said the referee had a pretty poor game yesterday overall, and maybe we rode our luck a little bit with the Kenny shout, but I think ultimately perhaps we were on the receiving end of some of those poor decisions. But it has to be said, momentum was very much in Brentford's favour in that first half, and they were rewarded with an equaliser not long after we went up. Bryan Mbeumo, I mean, we know how dangerous the combination of Bryan Mbeumo and Wissa is. And it was, we were kind of architects of our own downfall for this goal a little bit, because there were a few moments where we were, especially when we were breaking out of our back four, where we'd lose the ball in incredibly dangerous positions, especially when you are aware of the calibre of the the attacking force that Brentford have. So Traore misplaced the ball. It was actually picked up by Mbeumo, then Wissa back to Mbeumo, brilliant finish. And yeah, Drew, it kind of felt like the writing was on the wall for us a little bit with this one.
Yeah, and it was happening a few times before they actually got the goal as well. So it's like, you can't say that we weren't warned. And it's somebody in the chat was like, another. I think it might have been you, Coop. Somebody said, it's more points from a winning position. I was like, I don't think you can really count it, to be honest. Obviously we had a bright opening start, but like up for a matter of minutes and knocking on the door. I think a lot of people were saying at the same time, me included, was, oh no, we've gone 1-0 up, because that seems to be happening. So yeah, the pair of them have got 19 goals each this season for Brentford. Just shows the sort of the level of attacking player that they've got there compared to us. Although what I said previously about their attacking contribution still stands. It's a level above, isn't it? Which they're both dangerous players. So it wasn't a surprise. It was a bit more surprising what happened later with him, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said 19 goals. It could have been his 20th. Were he to have got past the mighty German that is Bernd Leno. Obviously, a brilliant save. I would argue a very weak penalty, but can't say any penalty save is a brilliant save in my book. But before we get onto that save from Leno, Piers, the penalty, right? So Schade against Anderson, if there was ever more of a one-sided foot race, please feel free to chip in, because I don't know whether there are many in the Premier League, but I don't know. I thought it was an incredibly soft penalty, but for me, the second that it was given, I knew that wasn't going to get overturned. As long as there was some contact there is no way that the ref's getting called to the monitor, and it looked like there was a little bit of contact. It's a tricky one, because I feel like if the ref doesn't give it, I don't know whether if he gets called to monitor the ref, or I don't think, essentially whatever decision the referee makes in that moment in time is what will play out. I don't think VAR intervention was going to change anything. But I mean, what was your take, Piers? Are you in agreement with me that it was an incredibly soft penalty?
Yeah, I think incredibly soft. I think as soon as it's got given, if there's any contact, they're not overturning it. It's this fine line we've tried to find in where VAR's jurisdiction lies, and trying to keep consistent with the refereeing on the pitch. And sometimes that works really well, and sometimes you go, is that really enough to warrant the overturning of a decision? I think Anderson's a bit silly for just giving an opportunity for it to exist at all. Schade is running off the pitch. His touch just before that was too heavy. I actually think he's dived in the second half against Tete, and so he's been falling on the floor very easily. You know what he's going to do. Don't give any opportunity for him to make the most of anything. So yeah, incredibly frustrating. But I can understand how Marco would have been infuriated by it, because it was very, very soft. And a few years ago, with how VAR was operated, I think that gets overturned at the moment, with it being the referee's decision being sort of biased towards that. I think, as you said there, it's really understandable of why it wasn't overturned, as soft and frustrating as it is. He's going absolutely nowhere. It's just going for a goal kick. Lovely moment. But instead, suddenly Mbeumo has this penalty opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he was denied by Leno, Jack. And I think after the Everton game, obviously there was that mistake for the third goal. Rare mistake, I hasten to add. For Leno to come out and pull a performance like he was yesterday out of the bag. There was that incredible save in the dying stages to keep us in it, sort of Gordon Banks-esque. I struggle to remember who actually got on the header for that one for Brentford. But just some really key saves, not less the penalty, and just, I guess, reminding us how lucky we are to have a keeper of his stature between our sticks.
Absolutely. Keepers are going to make mistakes in seasons. They're also going to come up with big saves and big moments. And obviously we saw that a couple of times on yesterday with Bernd Leno. Of course, the penalty shootout against Man United is a huge standout. He's made many a good save for Fulham since he's been at the club and kept us in games and won us points. And I thought the penalty was shocking in the approach. And I thought it sort of made it quite easy as to where he was going to go. Well saved. And I won't lie to you, in my time of being in a press box, I've never quite seen a moment like I saw when Bernd Leno's penalty was saved. Gentleman Jim absolutely, was celebrating the penalty save like you would. That caused, due to the sheer volume of how he was celebrating, caused Brentford fans to turn around and some effing and jeffing from them. The club unfortunately cut out that part from the extended highlights. I'm hoping that they post the whole 90 minutes so we can see it. But yeah, there was some real back and forth, and it's suddenly the whole derby sort of sparked into life from there. And then of course off the pitch as well with Marco Silva, he was being held back by a security guard because he was remonstrating with the fourth official. He then said after the game he's never had that happen to him before, where security's got to come in. He doesn't know why security's got to be there. The whole scenario, I was sort of just like, what on earth is going on here? Like, Jim really going for it, them going back at him, people from the club chatting to the Brentford fans, and it was like proper kicking off. And I was sat next to a Brentford fan who was also a journalist the whole game, and I was sticking it to him. He didn't say a word all game, but I was trying to wind him up as best as possible, and definitely tried to get under his skin, and it definitely worked. So everyone was a bit unprofessional. I was unprofessional yesterday for sure. Same happened with Chelsea away though. And the thing is, it's like every other game you go to, a level of professionalism, you concede, you keep stum, you score, you almost sort of keep stum as well. But something about Chelsea and Brentford, the derbies, it brings out something else in people that you don't expect to see it from. And that back and forth, those Brentford fans who were giving it to Jim, they certainly did stick around for the lap of appreciation. So yeah, they can fuck themselves.
I love your honesty, Jack. I love your honesty. It was. I wanted to ask about the Gentleman Jim because I saw a post on the forum saying the title of the post was "Highlight of the Day, maybe season." It has to be Gentleman Jim offering out to the Brentford fan live on Fulham TV just after they missed the penalty. He was telling him to meet him outside the ground after the match. If that doesn't win a BAFTA, then nothing will. Which I guess begs the question: what category would that particular BAFTA fall under? Best supporting actor, maybe. I don't know. I'll leave you guys to decide that. But because I went on the extended highlights and I couldn't find it, the club must have edited it out. But yeah, I think we'll all be looking at the full 90 with bated breath because it sounds like pure box office. Absolutely pure box office. Anyway, so there was a bit of a turning point in the match, and for me it came with the halftime substitution of Sander Berge coming off for Tom Cairney. Now, I'm sure I'm not the only one saying that it was a bit of a head scratcher at the time. I don't think Berge had done anything particularly to warrant getting the old shepherd's crook. But Drew, I know you're a Tom Cairney evangelist. I mean, credit to the man. It may not have seemed like the game for him, but I mean, how wrong were we? It was a performance worthy of a club legend.
Oh, and yeah, I am an evangelist, and what I really hated at full time is the some of the coverage was like, and in his last away appearance for Fulham, I was like, who said it is, and he says it hopefully isn't, and Marco says it hopefully isn't, or Marco seems a lot more confident that it isn't, And isn't it nice that Marco Silva makes this change at half time, which causes us to collectively shake our heads and then scratch our heads even and shake them. And then, full time he's proven to be right. And we can say, oh, actually, that he really is a genius, and maybe we're not the know-it-alls that we often purport to be. So fair play to Marco for bringing on Tom Cairney. Tom Cairney, as I say every time, he's about moments, and we needed a moment to get back into the game when it really wasn't looking like it was going to go our way. And a header, no less, which, we're talking about arrows in the quiver. That's a new one. You can teach an old dog new tricks, it seems. So that was also enjoyable to see from TC. It was magnificent, and it's funny because poor Harry Wilson's probably like, God, I've got the winning goal again against Brentford, but I really see everybody talking about Cairney instead of Wilson. But them's the breaks sometimes. I don't think it's the last one. I think Tom has shown time and time again in this new role. He's unselfish. He's the club captain. He's happy to take a step back and say, I'm going to help the team. He knows his limitations. He knows his minutes need to be managed. He knows all of this. And I think, there's no room for sentimentality in football when you get this far and you're this far and deep into a relationship between man and club. I think there's every room for it. And I think we need to keep him. We need to let him hang his boots up here and move directly onto the other side of the white lines and into the coaching staff, because the man is Fulham, and I don't want to see him playing for Ryan Reynolds, bloody Deadpool All-Stars. I don't want to see that. I want to see him at Fulham till he dies, literally and figuratively.
I guess time will tell, Drew. I mean, those links between Cairney and Wrexham are growing ever stronger, and I don't know, there was a way in which he celebrated the goal yesterday, and the way that he celebrated with the fans after full time, that made me think that maybe this was a goodbye. I'm sorry.
That's essentially what I asked Marco after the game. I basically said, that was a moment. Does it mean anything? And he said that it basically has nothing to do with the contract situation. We're still trying to sign him onto a new contract. And then he himself, Cairney, said, on paper, next week's my last game for Fulham. I hope it's not my last game for Fulham. I want to stay at Craven Cottage. So I would imagine that there's obviously a situation where it could be his last game on Sunday against Manchester City. If that's the case, the club will let us know in the week. So then we can all prepare for it, and there'll be a big old ceremony for it. If we don't hear anything, I would imagine that he's going to stay.
If you're Cairney's agent and you're trying to get a slightly better deal for this final year, there's probably only one club you could say he's going to go to that actually makes a bit of sense. And that is with his punditry future ahead of him, going to a club like Wrexham, which has that other side to it. I don't think going to any other club in the Championship for a promotion push makes sense to him. No club in the Premier League makes sense to him. That's the one club that can be pushed out. And I think when we've been this close to Europe this year, and obviously dumb and dummering, still hoping, but if we get into Europe next year, there's no chance Cairney's not staying on, even if he's just going to be carrying water bottles onto the pitch for a European tour. So I agree with Drew that I think, and I think all of us, that I think it was just, we'd won a derby, a huge derby. We did the double over Brentford. What an incredible moment for us all. So for me, it's not him saying goodbye. It's him just being really thrilled, as we all were in that moment. And so hopefully that will prove true.
Yeah, hopefully that's the case. I feel like everyone would love to see him, take on a sort of a coaching role at some stage, and I think we'd love to see him remain at Fulham, that's for sure. The Cairney substitution was an inspired one by Marco, but I think that it was enhanced by the introduction of Harry Wilson and Josh King on the 66th minute. Because for me, the dynamism that those two brought on, there was Wilson came on for Iwobi, who was seeming to flag a little bit, and Josh King was coming on for the Emil Smith Rowe, who, it has to be said, was fairly ineffective yesterday. I cannot tell you. Obviously, we'll come on to Harry Wilson and what happened, but I cannot tell you how impressed I was with Josh King. I think that the guy has. It's a word that's being used a lot in football punditry at the minute, but like aura about him. He's got an arrogance, which Dan Cook sort of said, but he's constantly wanting the ball. He's so dynamic, he's so agile. He will make a run that isn't picked out, and whilst most players will sort of, trot back into position, he's already got back into a position. I've never seen a player who wants the ball so much, and I think that we've got this unbelievable talent on our hands, Piers. Ones that I don't think we've seen come through the academy yet. Obviously, we've had a lot as well. We've had, going back to Pat Roberts, Ryan Sessegnon, Harvey Elliott, Fabio Carvalho. For me, I think Josh King is the most excited I've seen about a academy prospect come through, and I'm including like Ryan's breakthrough season in that. And I don't know, it feels like going into next season, we've potentially got this sort of the equivalent of, I don't know, like a £35 million number 10 that we've just, got. And the real question for me is, it feels like he's been criminally underused this year, because you could see the effect that he had on the game yesterday. And I don't know, I think we've got a real player on our hands. I think he looks the absolute business. What's your take on his performance yesterday?
I thought it was fantastic. A real credit to everyone at Motspur Park and everyone who's worked so hard to manage his minutes, manage his career, and develop him to this moment now. He brought so much energy and movement and precision. And as you say, he wasn't just making one run or one pass and then waiting for that. He was playing 4D chess, and any move that suddenly someone might not be onto because they're not on his wavelength, he's straight away trying another option and offering so many different things in different moments. And there was one moment that really stood out to me of him. It was just in stoppage time, where he was countering down the left. Raul was flying down the right and completely open. Most other players are turning it onto your right foot and playing that huge cross ball pass for Raul to be through on goal, 1-on-1, 4-2, lovely, thank you very much. But whilst being such a high reward pass, it's also such high risk. How many times have we seen that ball be made? You undercook it, the defender comes through, suddenly we've got 3 attackers committed and they counter the other side and score. And instead, he's taken it into the corner. We had a bit of almost that Norwich away game with Cairney and Johansson, with King, Wilson and Cairney just tapping it around each other. And just even in that little almost like training ground triangle that they were doing, their movement was incredible. And at no point are you thinking this is a teenager who's played a handful of first team games. As you say, he looks like he's a multi-million pound signing who's come in and just has such a good head on him, that fearlessness, and that ability to just make things happen on all areas of the pitch. It was a real maturity matched with that fearless side to him. And it's a really wonderful thing for us to have. And I'm really excited for how Marco's going to develop him through a proper pre-season and integrate him into the squad really fully.
Yeah, I think we've got a real breakout season on our hands next year. And I don't know, I think if there's anyone from Fulham's recruitment listening, sign him as long term as you possibly can. Let's not have a repeat of what we've seen so many times with our academy prospects, because he looks the absolute business. And yeah, just 2 minutes after the equaliser from Tom Cairney, we were treated to just a moment, Jack, that we'll never forget ever. Just, I feel like the 2 minutes, the quick succession is exactly what happened in the home leg. And there's no way to describe the feeling of that when you're in an away end, right? So you've just got back into the game and then everyone's still a bit delirious, a lot of heads in hands, a lot of people still out of breath from the celebrations. And then to get that again, it's like I nearly passed out just there and then. Jack, how did it look from the press area, the limbs looking in? And you must have been feeling quite jealous that you weren't getting stuck in.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced that one before. Forest away, when we've scored about 3 goals in 5 minutes. Was it Tosin, Palhinha, Harrison Reed all scoring really, really quickly? It's literally like you can't get your breath back and then you got to go again because you've just scored. And look, it was incredible. I again must give credit to Josh, because Josh makes the run to the sort of angles up the space for Harry to cut in and score. And I essentially gave it all that, stood up and all when we scored, which obviously is what you shouldn't do, but who cares? And yeah, look, I mean, the celebrations were wild. The noise, the groans around the home stand was fantastic. It was just unbelievable, and I had to sort of like to compose myself and tweet and we scored. But my head is still spinning. It was fantastic. And I stupidly said something on Jack and Joe last week about how we don't really have anyone capable of just pinging one from 30 yards and scoring, and then Harry Wilson goes and does it. Although I did caveat it by saying that Wilson has that in his locker. We've seen that at West Ham at home last season. What a goal. I mean, Flecken, why don't you just try to at least dive for it? But no, he just watched it wander into the bottom corner. And yeah, all hell broke loose with the away support. My brother, who was there, he basically said that, like could have passed out from celebrating 2 goals in 2 minutes. We've done it before against Brentford by celebrating 2 goals in 2 minutes, and we'll more than happily do it again. And wonderful goal, wonderful moment, top 5 moments for me of the season. In another incredible season, you got like Chelsea away, Brentford at home, Brentford away, Tottenham at home, Liverpool at home, Liverpool away, like Newcastle away. Just so many good moments, and unforgettable goal from Harry.
Yeah, Drew, it's just one of those goals that just makes football look so easy. You know, I showed it to my missus. I said, "Look, this was the goal." You know, it was the classic. Just look at what we've just witnessed, and she said, he just made it look completely effortless. Like, I think her words were, "Why don't they do that all the time?" It's incredibly difficult. It's got 35 yards. I mean, yeah. Do you think it's going to be the goal of the season? I'm struggling to think of anyone that comes close, to be honest.
Well, I think if you're looking at pure technique and skill, then yeah, I think it probably is. I think if you're looking for goals that typify moments, then I think Harry's got a handful of them in the running for that one. God, I mean, imagine if we'd had a fully fit Harry Wilson from fit and firing from November onwards, because, you know, you're looking at this now and we're looking at, you know, if this happens and X, Y, and Z happen, and, you know, maybe we'll get scrape eighth and whatever, and all of it seems very unlikely. But if we just had an extra 3 points, then I think, you know, we'd be in that driver's seat and we'd be going into the final game saying it's in our own hands. And I think you can't argue with the fact that if we had a fully fit Harry Wilson coming off, keeping that run going after he sort of kick-started his own season back in November, you know, you'd be hard pressed to argue that we wouldn't be up there with at least 6 or even 9 more points. But, you know, if my aunt had bollocks, she'd be my uncle. So I suppose it's a bit ifs, buts and maybes, and that's the problem with this point of the season. But lovely to see Harry do that. I think it's got to be up there for goal of the season, because it's just been fantastic. And again, another player who signed this contract extension or got the extension activated this week, and that's fully deserved. And who doesn't want Harry Wilson in their squad in the Premier League? Like, come on. Like, a club of our stature at the moment, people say, oh, we need to be going for the level above. But Harry Wilson is that level. And I'm delighted to see him doing that on the pitch. And I'm delighted to have him for at least another year.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever scored all 3 goals of the season before?
Yeah. Contenders.
I'm trying to think. Neeskins, when he got, you know, when he scored like 5, or was it 3 free kicks back to back to back? And then I think he probably popped up with a few others that were worldies, but I can't think of anyone who's ever done it to the extent that Harry has. And you're right, Drew. He's the sort of player, as he proved on Sunday, that pops up with match-winning goals and big moments. And you think, how many points would that be worth over the course of the season if he'd been fit the whole time? But, you know, let's not dwell on that too much, because it's quite a painful thing to mull over. It was just such a beautiful day yesterday, as we've spoken about, and JK, you sort of alluded to it earlier. One of the most beautiful moments of yesterday was the fact that it was Brentford's last home game of the season, and as is tradition, they do a lap of honour after the game. And as I'm sure you can imagine, there was nobody left in the stadium. Bees fans were pouring out of the ground from about 85 minutes onwards. It was beautiful to see, and there was a very timid announcement from the Brentford stadium announcer saying, "As will be thanking the team will be coming out to thank you for your wonderful support throughout the year. So do stick around for the lap of honour." And all you could hear was just the Fulham faithful saying, "Who put the ball? He's done it again. He's done it again. Harry Wilson. He's done it again." It was just great. I mean, Piers, you were there yesterday. Were there any other moments that sort of stood out? Fan interactions that were quite enjoyable for you?
Yeah, well, actually, I had a really similar thing for me happened in this game as was for Chelsea away on Boxing Day, where in the second half at Chelsea away, we all started singing Tosin's modified new chant, and it really galvanised all the away fans. And for 10 minutes, we were just bouncing around, singing that over and over. And it all brought this new energy to us, which carried through onto the pitch. And obviously, we know how it ended for Chelsea. This was really similar. At the start of the second half, Brentford are slowing the game down. I think they had one player injured. Then as soon as it was about to restart, another player sat down. They were doing all the tricks in the book. And the Fulham fans decided to sing about Brentford's lack of European credentials for about 10 minutes on loop. And it had the same galvanizing effect where we got so excited by the fact they'd never been in Europe, and we had, that we then found this new energy, this new lease of life in the crowd. And that carries through where about 10 minutes after that starts, the first goal, then the second goal. And I think you hear Marco saying at the end, but it's those moments where you feel so proud as a fan of those of us who were able to be there and the contribution we've made to that result of being the 12th man and all those cliches. But in those moments, it's absolutely true. And if we find those ways to create that in more home games as well and make Craven Cottage not only a fortress on the pitch, but a sound wall off it, then we've got a really exciting thing in our hands. And if we speak about Marco's ambitions and what he's asking of the players, he's asking it of us the whole time as well, very politely. And if we want Marco to stay for as long as we can, making the home atmosphere like it was at Brentford on Sunday will be a huge part of him going, right, we've got a whole club who are all flying in the same direction.
When that happened, like you say, Piers, like 10 minutes on loop, Fulham was singing the songs about Brentford or whatever. I don't really associate that with Fulham fans when we're losing a game, no matter what's happening in the game. I don't associate Fulham fans all coming together as one, especially losing a game, to then sort of lift themselves. But the opportunity was there to do it because there was just this lull in the game where, like you say, 2 players were down for Brentford. There was a lot of, I think it was Coyote getting treatment who ultimately came off. And it just sort of, it was like this sort of re-energized mood in the away end where everyone's had a halftime pint, fancy a sing-song, oh well, we're losing. And it genuinely lifted probably the whole team. So immense credit to the Fulham fans for doing that because, like I say, you don't usually associate Fulham fans with, sing when you're winning, obviously, but when you're losing, a lot of people are sort of moaning and groaning. But the fact they just got behind the team in that moment was huge and actually probably contributed to the win.
Yeah, huge performance both on and off the pitch for Fulham. Let's just revel in it for the rest of the season, I think. And just on that, Jack, before we round up this part 1, any final words on that victory and indeed this season?
Oh, I'd rather ask all the Brentford fans on their thoughts of the game, actually. I'd like to hear what they have to say. Didn't hear much from them after the game. But look, let's focus on Fulham. To beat the records tally, it is fantastic in the manner of which we did it, where we did it, how we did it is fantastic. I think a lot of moans and groans, understandably, about the whole season where we could have been here and could have been there. But I think after next week, we've got to take a little step back and go, actually, beating the records tally, hopefully finishing in the top half. It's been a remarkable season. All those memories I just sort of listed off earlier, it's been unbelievable. And yes, obviously, you're going to concede goals in last minutes to lose points, and obviously losing winning positions, losing all those points from winning positions, of course, a massive frustration. But as 10 years ago, we were coming off the back of the 14-15 season, 4-2 defeat to Norwich. Didn't know where we were going. 10 years later, we're going into a 4th consecutive Premier League season, battling for Europe, and have one of the best managers we've had in modern history. I'm very emotional and very proud of the team this season. I think it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I think you're right. It certainly has one packed full of memories and huge moments, and a lot of what could have been. But I think once the European disappointment kind of subsides, we'll be able to take fresh perspective on this year, and it's been an all-timer. It really has. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back for part 2 with some of your questions. Welcome back to the Fulhamish podcast. George here. I am joined by Drew, Piers and JK. Before we get stuck into your questions, we are doing a little signed shirt giveaway. So we've got a Fulham home shirt from this season. It is all the funds go to the Fulham FC Foundation. It's a beautiful shirt. All you have to do to enter is give £10 to the foundation on the Just Giving page in the link to the description. For each £10 you give, you get an entry into the draw. Target is to raise about £1,000. We're currently on 490. So any pennies that you could give, and obviously there's a chance to win a shirt, and that would be much appreciated. All going to a fantastic cause, which is the Fulham FC Foundation. So let's get into your questions now. This one's for you, Drew. Joshua Dawes got in touch and says, now we have the most substitute players scoring goals, 17. Is this a tactical genius play by Silva, or potentially a problem with him not picking the right starting 11 for the game? I know you can have an impact from that is happening too often to be a thing. Thoughts? So obviously Fulham beat another record on the weekend, which is most goals from substitutes in a Premier League season at 17. So is this tactical genius from Silva, or is it perhaps the fact he's not picking the right starting 11? I've got my own opinion on this, but I wanted to hear yours first.
I find it a really fascinating discussion because, you know, a lot you can say either way, really. Like, it shows that Silva knows how to change the game, right? But then there's been quite a lot of criticism leveled the opposite way, you know, tactical inflexibility when things are going wrong, plan B. But then people will argue that point as well. And I think it's really interesting how it splits the fan base. I think it feels a bit churlish to say it shows that he doesn't know how to pick the right starting 11. I think, you know, the Premier League is the Premier League, and, you know, the separating the wheat from the chaff is being able to change that and get the tide going in your favour when it's not going your way. I find it absolutely fascinating. But one thing that you can say is it absolutely has contributed to, you know, JK talking about all the moments and things this season. How many of those moments have come through those substitutions and those game changing moves? Whether they were, you know, I think, to say that, you know, there's an element of luck involved, the player has to come on and do the job. But I think to have the foresight to bring them on the pitch in the first place, you know, go back to the TC one yesterday, everyone's scratching their heads, everyone feeling a little bit confused, and it comes and it pays off. So I think it shows that Silva has that magic touch. He is a genius after all. I think, you know, nobody's infallible. And I think that there's many different topics of conversation you can have about Marco, but I think that is one thing that we can't really take away from him, is that he this season at least has known how to put the right bodies on at the right time.
No, I agree. I think in the modern game, as they talk about it, the concept of having your starting 11, but then also your finishing 11, right? And everything would have been meticulously planned, and I think it's just testament to the squad that we've got, that there is such competition. You know, Wilson, after he got the brace at Brentford, I remember he did a post-match interview where he said how desperate he is for a starting place, and Marco's created this culture where everybody is fighting for that starting 11 place, and we've got a lot of players who are just very impactful off the bench. You know, Adama, Muniz, Wilson, and no doubt we'll be adding to that roster over the summer. Jack, have you got any sort of take on this? Why is it that we get so many goals from substitutes this year?
I just think that those subs have something to offer that's a little bit different from those who start. I mean, you look at Harry Wilson, Ryan Sessegnon, they're not typically out-and-out wingers in the most traditional sense. You got another striking option in usually Rodrigo Muniz or Raul Jimenez, and yeah, it's the fact that they all just bring something a little bit different to the game. You look at, you know, the most common starting left-hand sider, which is Iwobi, who has been phenomenal, but in the last 10 games has completely tailed off a lot. But because Marco has that trust in him, he's always going to start, because he can always, like you say, come up with a big moment as well. But if it's not his day, you got someone to bring on like Harry, someone like Sess, someone like Willian, someone like Adama, who can make things happen and score goals and create. And it's just, it's not a negative. I think it's a positive. It means that even if the chips are down, if things are not going well, there are players who can come on and make an impact. We've seen it so many times this season. It's unbelievable. It's extraordinary, really, how many times it's happened. And it's just testament to the squad that they sort of have that desire to come on, know that they can change a game, know that they can come up with a moment, run at fresh legs and create something different for us. And I think that to a man, everyone is the thing. Like, if you're on the bench, it's not like, oh, you're not good enough to play. It's, well, can you be ready to come on with 20 minutes to go and create something for us? And most of the time, the answer is yes.
Stuff. Paddy asks, Piers, how do you expect us to shape up against Manchester City, and can you see us registering a victory against the fallen champions? Is this one for Josh King to start in? What do you reckon?
I think this could be very famous last words here, but we're going to win 11-0. No, I think it's quite a nice time to play City. If you look at when we played them away and we absolutely dominated them and somehow didn't win 6-3, That started their huge run of really bad results, which has completely derailed their season. Then we come to this where Glasnow's sort of done what we did and absolutely out-tacticked them and outsmarted them in the cup final. That we've got this one game left. They've got another game during the week for us to make the most of and can just set up, and we know what game plan we'll need to play against it. So it's a nice opportunity for us to go and execute that whilst they're a little bit fragile again. I think Josh King could absolutely start. I think we've seen so many great bits of him from his 20-30 minutes on Sunday. I wouldn't be surprised if Silva doesn't start him though, and instead makes the most of him coming in later in the game and making the most of the spaces that start opening up more as the game presents itself and as we possibly are chasing it later on. Did we play a back five against? No, we didn't play back five against them away. But I don't think I think he's parked that away for the season as well. They're such a good side, City. They're just always a good side, and they're competing for Champions League potentially if they don't win tomorrow night. So it's going to be a really tough game, and it'll be a really great proof of our credentials of what we can do at home. We've pulled up so many of these amazing results throughout this season. We've got one more to go to pull out another shock result. So Marco's going to have the players bang up for it. You see how they've all reacted on social media after yesterday and how they're all so excited for it and ready to prove themselves one last time. So I don't think there's any attitude of going in thinking we're scared of them. It's City. They're going to come in. Let's see if we get through it. The players are turning up to win this game of football. And if the fans come and bring that attitude as well, who knows what we're capable of.
Yeah, I think the fact with it being the last home game of the season as well, there's going to be a mood of immense pride for this side, given all of everything that's happened, despite the disappointment. So I feel like there's every chance that we could get something from this game, but it's just unfortunate that we got around off playing them because I feel like Fulham can struggle against teams that just have like. You can outplay a team like City for 90 minutes, but then we do often fall, as many teams do, victim of just that moment of brilliance and quality that is very hard to, counteract effectively. So yeah, I fancy us. We'll see. It'll be a good mood amongst around Craven Cottage, no matter what, I'd imagine. Drew at FFC Dom, we've got another Josh King question here. Quite a few around this theme. He goes, "How good is Josh King? Forget his potential. How good is he right now?" What did you make of Josh? We've obviously given our take on him, but yeah, were you as impressed as we were?
Yeah, and I think it's not just yesterday, but every time we've seen him this season. I think it's an interesting question, like how good is he now? I think it's a bit of a travesty that he's not had more minutes this term, because it's the centre of the park has been, and that creativity and that dynamism has been something that we've struggled with. ESR's troubles have been well documented. Pereira's sort of struggled in the 8, and we've had all of these different problems for a midfield a central midfield that comprises of just 3 elements. We find it very difficult to get that right. So to say that Josh King has had the number of minutes he's had has not been good enough, I don't think. And there are murmurings about contracts and it's all very well and good saying sign him up to the longest contract we can do, but I think there's murmurings that he's not happy about the amount of minutes that he's been given, and I think if what I'm hearing is right from people who say that they're in the know, then he wants minutes over money. So I don't know. I just think that he's a problem solver that we could have done with now. And for a while, he dropped out of the matchday squad completely. And I just don't think that was good enough. We played him against Southampton from the start, but I just think like that was a start. But I think something that we should have built on. I think we needed him. So yeah, I mean, look, great talent. I have a feeling that we'll have him next season anyway. Judging by the contract situation, and I think if we don't give him the minutes next season from the get-go, then we can't be complaining when somebody comes in and picks him up, because we can't be a dog in a manger about it, can we? We've got to use him or lose him.
Yeah,
I
sure.
essentially think the role that he should be playing next season is, you look at the team and the bench that we have, and it's usually 2 centre mids in Reid and Tom Cairney. I essentially think that he should be one of those 2 that features on the bench, so that he basically is getting in the first team squad every match day, and then subsequently getting minutes off that, starting all the cup games, starting the odd league game, and playing lots of minutes from the bench. He obviously can play in the 10 as well, so obviously if Pereira was to move on. And obviously we will probably look for another 10, but I think he can occupy that position as well. It's definitely a case of he absolutely, Marco Silva absolutely adores Josh King. And I think he's probably wanted to play him more than he has this season. He's obviously been for the under-21s fantastic as well, which has been helpful for his minutes and his development. But ultimately, he's at a stage of his career now. And I know he's only 18, but he's that good that he can play at this level. We saw it yesterday, that from next season, if he's not making the first team squad, which I'm sure he will, he'll go to pre-season and do all of that stuff, then he'll obviously be frustrated. And that's obviously where question marks will come over his future. I believe he's got another year. And so next season, it's going to be about, I know we're already in negotiations to try and tie him down to a new contract. But right now, like Drew said, he's unhappy about minutes and he needs more minutes. And I think if we want to take him seriously, we've got to do it.
Yeah, if you're good enough, you're old enough, right? That's the idea. And a lot of people say, oh, we need to play the kids. We need to play more of the kids. And I appreciate that you can't just blood every youngster going in the Premier League. Like, I've never been one of those people to say, oh, we should be playing more of the academy kids. Like, there is a process in place. But I think this is a special case where we've seen the cut of his jib and we know what type of player he's done. We've seen it with our very own eyes. He does it in front of us when he comes on. So, if you can prove yourself like that, then that should be all you need to do. And as I say, like he was a problem solver for us this season, I think. So if he's, first team squad bare minimum, I want to be seeing, minutes from the start from August onwards. Paying lip service and just sticking him in the match day 20 is one thing, but it needs to go a step further.
And Jack, you've watched a lot of the under-21 stuff and they've had such great success in the league and the cup towards the end of the season. Do you think there's an element where Marco felt that his development was best served having that continuity through those in the sort of the business end of their season rather than playing more of a bit part in the first team?
I definitely think that's the case, because when we qualify for the playoffs, they're obviously the games you need to be involved in for the best players in order to hopefully win the whole thing. And obviously we didn't. We lost to Southampton, but we had the Premier League International Cup where he played, the minutes in there against like Lyon and I believe it was Benfica at Craven Cottage. So he had that exposure as well, whilst also trying to finish as high as possible in the Premier League too, which we finished second. So I think Hayden Mullins must have been like, look, he's our best player. We've got to play him almost every week. And then it got to a point around Christmas where Marco was like, let's actually use him for the first team, because not because we have injuries, but because he's good enough to play. And then, there was that is within the last month and a half, 2 months, has been this sort of like, well, he's not at the under-21s at Blackburn away. He's also not here at Bournemouth for the 1-0 defeat. What's going on there? A complete lack of communication, I reckon, between the people at the club. But now it's evident that he will be not with the under-21s next season, hopefully, be with the first team, and that's where his career is going to start. It's interesting because obviously Fabio Carvalho was at a similar age, breaking into the first team, but because we were in the Championship, it allowed for him to play first team football because we were against lesser opposition. It's more difficult with Josh because whilst we want to compete for Europe, whilst we want to compete at all levels, we're going to have to play essentially our most experienced and best players, and obviously Josh is just up and coming. But I think now we're at a stage where we saw it yesterday. The kid's got it. So let's play him. And actually, if he's getting into the team over a over a Sasha Lukic or a Emil Smith-Rowe, then people are going to start taking notice.
Josh King breakout season incoming. I for one, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Piers, we've got quite a difficult one for you now. I'm afraid it's coming to you. So Polly asks, Chelsea away or Brentford away this season? If you had to choose between the two.
That's brutal. Which of the twins do I like the most?
Yeah.
Actually, I will give an answer for this, because I'll try and get off a fence, which is a very lovely fence to be on, because they are both utter core memories for every Fulham fan. And I think for me, the only difference that I will try to find in that is that for Brentford, we were winning for about 20 minutes and had that excitement and that joy through it, versus Chelsea, it was about 3 minutes of, oh my God, did we just score? Oh my God, we're going to win this. So that I'm going to go, just because it was 20 minutes of pure positive adrenaline versus the 5 minutes of stoppage time pure positive adrenaline, is my attempt at finding an answer. But you can't split them, really. They're both phenomenal things, and what an achievement for everyone at the club, and how lucky we are to have both of those moments this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think actually, I as you say, it's on a knife edge, and it's ultimately, I think, a fairly futile argument, because they're both just wonderful moments. But I think the Chelsea away, just given how long it had been since we'd done that, for me, just clinches it. And that just feeling of euphoria after the Muniz goal, it's a genuine tears in eyes. And whilst Wilson's goal was something else, I don't know whether I quite reached that. I don't know whether it's hit me over the edge in the same way that the Chelsea game did, but not to take anything away from it, of course. We've got one final question here. I'm going to show this one to you, Jack. Taylor asks, who put the ball in the Brentford net?
Well, it wasn't Marcelo Trotter when he had the chance to score the penalty to take them up. It wasn't him. He hit the bar.
It's not a wrong answer. It's not the setup you would have.
Drew, give the people what they want. Who put the ball in the Brentford net?
Harry fucking Wilson.
Damn straight. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure. What an occasion. What a week. Ride on this high for as long as possible. And what a way to wrap up the pods. Jack, have you got a favourite 3-word review that you'd like to name the podcast?
It's probably got to be Jack J. Collins with an absolutely outstanding one. Harry Wilson, beekeeper.
I love it. What a time to be alive.
It reminds me of that Sky original film with Jason Statham, where he was actually a beekeeper but an ex-spy. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's delightfully weird but also quite good.
I can see the footwork graphic design team pulling out a poster very soon of something of that ilk. But yeah, gents, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you to everyone who's listened. I'm sure there have been a few sore heads today, but I'm hoping that the jubilation of Sunday's victory has carried you through. But yeah, thanks very much for listening. We're back on Thursday, obviously. Sammy and Jack will be returning, but until then, have a great week and come on, you Whites.